Assalamu alaikum. Ladies and gentlemen, dear audience, যারা যেখানেই আছেন সবাইকে আমি শুভেচ্ছা জানাচ্ছি এবং সবাইকে শুভ সন্ধ্যা জানাচ্ছি। আজকে আমরা অবতীর্ণ হয়েছি আমাদের সপ্তম অধ্যায় of Prime Bank Presents Expertise, and this is hosted by Valor of Bangladesh. Valor of Bangladesh, আপনারা সবাই জানেন, যে একটি নলেজ ডিসেমিনেশন প্ল্যাটফর্ম, যেখানে আমরা বিভিন্ন এক্সপার্টের সাথে কথা বলি এই ওয়েবিনারের মাধ্যমে বা ওয়ান অন ওয়ান, এবং তাদের বক্তব্যগুলি আমরা তুলে ধরি ইন ডিফারেন্ট ফর্ম অফ সোশ্যাল মিডিয়া আপনাদের অবগতির জন্য, এবং অ্যাট দ্য সেম টাইম এগুলাকে আমরা ট্রান্সক্রিপ্ট রূপে একটি জার্নাল হিসাবে প্রতি বছর আমরা এটাকে লিপিবদ্ধ করে আপনাদের সামনে পৌঁছাবার চেষ্টা করি। তো আজকে in the 7th episode of Expert Eye, where we have a very distinguished expert to talk with us. And the session is called Healthcare, and this is going to be a session where we are going to talk about the future of healthcare of Bangladesh, and also what is healthcare now like in different parts of the world. Now, I would like to welcome our guest, Professor Dr. Samnun Taha, who is with us. He is an MBBS from Dhaka, Bangladesh, an MRCP from Royal College of Physicians, UK, and most importantly, he is one of the few geriatric medicine specialists in our country, and he has done his diploma in geriatric medicine at the Royal College of Physicians in London in 2012. Now, we would like to welcome Dr. Samnun Taha. Dr. Taha, thank you very much for joining us today, and we are really happy to have you. And I would like to request you to say a few words about yourself to the audience. Over to you, Dr. Samnun Taha.
Okay, thank you, Albab. Albab has almost told everything about me. He has already said that I'm a geriatric medicine specialist working in Bangladesh, and I had my training in this particular subject, which hasn't really grown that much in our country as yet. But you see, the number of aged people are increasing. 50 years back, the average longevity in our country was about 41 years or so. Now it has jumped to about 73 years. And at one point of time, it was thought that aging is only a Western issue. But it is said now, with development of healthcare and all the socio-economic condition, in next 25 years or so, around 70% of the aged people will be situated in subcontinent and China. So it has become very much a Eastern problem rather than a Western problem, aging. And I have been working with aging for a long time. I mean, not only as a doctor, but other aging issues as well, with different NGOs in Bangladesh and outside Bangladesh. So that is my specialty. And I have a hospital, the first one in the country, uh, called Senior Citizen Hospital, which is established with the aim of developing the Western model of treating elderly people. I mean, still in infancy, but I'm working on it. Okay.
Congratulations, Dr. Taha. This also goes for the audience. I have visited his hospital. It's called Senior Citizen Hospital, and he is doing a wonderful job. And this is one of the dimensions that I really would like to bring before you that this gentleman has initiated. Um, Dr. Taha, I just want to know in few words what has prompted you in becoming a geriatric specialist. Of course, you have mentioned about certain facts, but you yourself as a person, what has prompted you to become a
Oh,
geriatric
well,
specialist?
actually, when I went to UK for my for post graduation studies, I mean, even in UK, it was in their infancy, geriatric medicine. So when I was a very young doctor, yeah, I was posted in a geriatric care institute. That was long, long back, and it was I mean, that hospital mostly had geriatric and psychiatry, and it was somewhere near Newcastle, in a very small town. And I was the only Bangladeshi over there, obviously, and mostly it was there were some English doctors or so. So uh, well, I came across a lot of elderly people over there, and how they are treated and all that. Initially, I thought that my career is in an end stage at that point of time, because nobody used to speak about this geriatric medicine, or about or how to take care of elderly people, even in UK at that point of time. um, but then I went, and when I came to know my patients, and their different problems, and these elderly people are really at one point of their life, they are quite helpless, and they're like, you know in some respect, babies. uh, I came across uh, some of the dementia patients. Dementia is something, a word that is becoming popular, or known in our country as well. But at that time, long back, even in UK, dementia wasn't something that doctors worried about. But I still remember I walked in my ward. Old lady, dementic, suddenly ran after me. She was very agitated. So, and I was really, really very scared. Next day, my consultant uh, took me to her and said that, look, this lady was one of our best plastic surgeon, and she is suffering from dementia now. And really, I mean, from that time onwards, I really wanted to become a geriatric medicine specialist. So yeah, that's my story. And since then, I am working on it. I mean, I love this subject and all that. Yeah. And it
Thank you, Dr.
came,
Taha.
yeah,
Please go ahead.
actually, it came really handy this time during the COVID period, because you all know
We'll,
that COVID affected the elderly people a lot, more than the younger
we'll come
ones.
to that,
All
Dr.
right.
Taha. We'll
Okay.
come to that. But
All right.
but what I can say is it's your as we can understand, it's a blend of profession and emotion, where you have really taken your profession to a level of nobility, and we really uh, appreciate that, and we really thank you for being there for the elderly patients of Bangladesh. Now let us go to the session, and let me start this session with one question related to what you were about to say, I guess. That, how healthcare, you think, has changed during the pandemic or post pandemic? That is, the entire process of transformation that we have experienced, the digitization, the overall transformation in the all the sectors where medical sector was under the scope. It was a very, very important and integral sector during the last 1.5 years or 2 years. So, with your own experience, how do you see this medical or healthcare has evolved over the last 1.5 year or 2 years? Thank you, Dr. Taha. Over to you.
Well, initially it was a very scary experience, even for us doctors, really, and it did prove the inadequacy of our preparation. I mean, well, the healthcare system all over the world, not only in Bangladesh, uh, was inadequate to handle something in this huge scale and this complexity. Uh, uh, well, especially in Bangladesh, there was shortage of ICU. I mean, there are quite a few ICU set up in Dhaka. I mean, but outside Dhaka, uh, ICU facility is very negligible, and most of the I mean many of my patients, died in road. As a matter of fact, they couldn't make it to Dhaka, and in a country like ours, though it's a small country, but with such densely population, I mean, uh, an inadequacy of ICU was one of the issues that really showed that how ill we are prepared for catastrophic diseases. Let me explain what we mean by catastrophic diseases. Catastrophic diseases are this type of complicated diseases where you need complicated manpower support, machine support, and and other medical facilities. Because having some ventilator is not good enough. You need to have experienced people to run it as well. And over the years, you see in Bangladesh, uh, our GDP expenditure is only 1.3% in healthcare. According to WHO, it should be at least 5%. Even our neighbors, I mean, small country like Nepal, they have got a expenditure of around 3% of their GDP. And over the year, if we see that in last 10 years, GDP percentage expenditure in healthcare has gradually decreased, though the budget has increased in size. So the amount of money has increased, but the GDP percentage expenditure is quite low. On the other hand, there has been a lot of changes in population structure in our country. People have aged a lot, and they come with complex diseases, and they have to be admitted in the hospital more frequent than before. They need complicated healthcare support. This all everything costs a lot of money, and there are some studies, as a matter of fact, that um, about 5 million people are going. Bangladesh, as you know, is progressing fast economically, socially, in everywhere. But still, the healthcare cost is bringing down about 5 million people under the poverty line each year. due to this catastrophic disease expenditure. One of the reasons is that we really don't have any health insurance support system in our country. I mean, less than 1% of the population is under health insurance. I mean, even imagine. Let me give you an example. Imagine a country like Rwanda. I mean, just few years back, they were fighting with each other. Now, 95% of their population is covered by health insurance. Thailand, 98%. Even India, India has gone, at least whole middle class is covered by health insurance now. Yeah, and I think they have already decided to include about 10 crore families into health insurance program. Now, Bangladesh government or doesn't have as yet as any program or plan to introduce universal healthcare system, which is absolutely necessary if you want to give proper healthcare, quality healthcare to the people. That is very important. And this sliding down into poverty, it can be prevented. I mean, the healthcare cost is one of, as I said, is one of the most important thing that makes people poor in our country.
Okay. Thank you. That's something I completely agree with you that in Bangladesh, healthcare and these catastrophic diseases, including diseases like cancer,
Yeah, exactly.
has brings about even an affluent society under the poverty line. This
Right now, I have a
is
patient
completely
in
true.
my ICU. Albab, right now I have got a patient in ICU. They had been treating their sons were with. I had a meeting with their son just this afternoon, and they have been spending lots of money after their mother for last 1 year. But she has progressed to stage 4 cancer, which is the end stage, and
Yeah.
now she needs ICU support. I was telling them that, look, she's. What do you guys want to do? Medically, I don't see any future for this particular patient, and if I prolong her stay into ICU, all you will be doing is spending money. This is something that I have to tell. I have to tell it to my patient, and it's always painful. But if there were some sort of payment system, insurance system in the country, I would be, as a doctor, I feel very good because I wouldn't have to uh, tell this to a son. I don't. I didn't need to inform our son that take your mother home and let her die in peace, instead of spending money after her. I mean, this is really painful for me.
Well, it's a global situation in Bangladesh. Let me go to my next question. You have covered a core part of that I really wanted to discuss in my second question. However, I still have the question before you. That is, you know, in comparison to the global healthcare system, uh, how you want to see, of course, insurance is one of the components, but other than that, to take the service beyond, how do you want to see Bangladesh healthcare system in the future? What are the changes you see that will happen, and what are the changes that you see should happen? Please, over to you.
Actually, the healthcare dynamics is changing all over the world, not only in Bangladesh. Artificial intelligence is becoming a big thing in healthcare system all over the world, really. I mean, I wouldn't say that doctors will be replaced by robot recently as such, but a long distance treatment, artificial intelligence, diagnosis of treatment is becoming an important tool. Uh, there are and there are two issues here. Number one, all over the world, not only in Bangladesh, all over the world, especially in developing country like Bangladesh, uh, it is agreed that healthcare delivery cost has to come down if we want to meet the need of so many people. I mean, the budget is finite. The healthcare budget is always something. I mean, that is uh, government in a country like ours, government is more interested to build roads and bridges, and that is understandable because that is part of their developmental plan. But the thing is, healthcare wise and education wise, most of the developing countries are not spending as much they should, as much as the Western countries, or as much as they should be spending. Uh, One of the reason is they simply do not have enough fund with them. So you see, lot of international manufacturers, especially machine manufacturers like Siemens, Philips, and a lot of other manufacturers, they have come up with uh, cheaper, smaller machines, like, let's say, CT scan. I mean, the CT scan was a $1 million machine just few years back, and they have brought down the price to a smaller level for smaller hospital. And with development of minimal invasive surgeries and all those new technologies, people do not need to stay in hospital for a long time. That's why the future we are not future of healthcare is smaller hospital, more localized. We won't be able to see 500 bedded hospital because we don't need it. With new technologies and with implementation of AI based treatment, probably a localized small hospital will be the norm. And with I mean, that's for the towns or the cities. And the challenge is always how we take the modern healthcare system to the small towns and the villages, because I mean, a majority of our people live there, and it's only fair that we cater to the need. And one of the ways of doing it is, distant treatment, and also setting up smaller setups, smaller hospitals, smaller hospitals in different part of the country. I mean, as a matter of fact, in different parts of the world, people are experimenting with this hub and spoke for fashion of healthcare system, where in the center there is a hospital which supports another 10 hospitals away from there through technology and other means. And more so, it will be relevant in our country more so because this country is really aging, contrary to the belief that only 8% of our population are above 60. But if by sheer number, our elderly people population is about 15 million, uh, which is much. I mean, whole UK has only 10 million above 60 people. So, in most of the doctor's chamber, if you walk into a hospital, even in Bangladesh, I mean, 60-70% admitted patients are old people, are elderly people, really, and they have multiple diseases. That's why the healthcare cost is growing. One of the major issues is this aging issue, because uh, for an aged person, uh, healthcare in a hospital, I mean, becoming sick is just one part of their problem. When they recover and go back home, they need social support as well. That has to be given sometimes by the community, because the social structure is changing as well. uh, uh, I mean, in most of the families, sons and daughters are living outside the country or in some other cities. So, who looks after them if they become sick? Who prepares their food, for that matter? I mean, community has to take care of that. So, we need to build up community-based support care system to complement the healthcare need as well. That is very important.
Thank you, Dr. Taha. We'll just take a break for 2 minutes, and then we come back with a couple more questions. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen, and a very good evening. Before we move into the second half of this episode of Expert Eye, we would like to bring you a short message from our sponsors. Now, this episode is being sponsored by Prime Bank Limited, as well as a plethora of other brands, including Mastercard Bangladesh, City Capital Investment Limited, Alien Technologies, Dr. Bhai, My Classroom Online, as well as many other brands like AB Bank. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is because of these brands that Valor of Bangladesh continuously remains empowered and is able to come up with a host of different events like this one. And therefore, we would like to take a moment and acknowledge their empowerment and their continuous assistance in this regard. Thank you.
Welcome back, dear audience. Uh, we are back with Dr. Taha, and we will have a couple more questions before you. But we have been, before that, let me tell you that we have been hearing about a very important fact, that how this group of aged population can be brought under a healthy living. So, in a nutshell, so let us go back to Dr. Taha with our next question. And that is a very simple question I would like to ask, which is uh, about economies of scale. When you spoke about that, bringing in the small hospitals or community-based hospitals, how can we uh, achieve economies of scale, Dr. Taha?
Well, as I said before, the price of expensive instruments, the instruments which were considered very expensive, have come down drastically. Um,
Okay.
this is one of the issues why a hospital is a hotel and and a healthcare system combined together. You understand? I mean, if you walk into a corporate hospital, even in Dhaka, it's a five-star hospital, and as well as lot of gadgets, expensive gadgets and all that. It takes a lot of money to build a big hospital. And the problem with big hospital is the recurring cost is also very high. And you need lots of different types of manpower for that. That's why they you charge so much in a corporate hospital, for that matter. But what about, probably a small percentage of our population can afford that. But what about the majority of the middle class, lower middle class? Let alone, let's not talk about the poorer section of the population. But in our country, even higher middle class, middle class is quite a very big section of the population. So, and not only in Bangladesh, not only in Dhaka, I was in Mumbai 2 years back, just before COVID, and even there, I went to a lot of places to see how their healthcare is evolving, and it seems that I was in a hospital. It's a wonderful. I would call it a 7-star hotel, at Apollo in Navi Mumbai. It's a 500-bedded hospital, but I saw that only 200 of their beds were occupied. And 300 beds just lying empty. But when I went to a localized hospital in one small county, one small ward, it was full, a 50-60 bedded hospital. They were doing angiogram right and left. They had smaller cities and everything. In Dhaka is similar to Mumbai, as a matter of fact, a lot of traffic jam. Even if you want, imagine you are living, as I know that you are living in Bosundhara. You are not going to go to Square all the way to Dhanmondi for any treatment. If you need it, probably you'll get worse during the ride. Think about. Dhaka is several cities within one city, isn't it? There is a statistics that 75% of Dhaka people do not travel beyond 2.7 kilometers. That's their life. Their office, everything, kids' school, healthcare, everything is within that 2.7 square kilometer area. Same with any big city in the world. Traffic jam, lots of issues are there. Who is going to take you to a hospital far away, which is far away from your home? Everything. Life has become very complicated. Everybody is working to survive in a big city. Everybody in the family has to work. So, if somebody gets a good hospital, relatively good hospital, not a 7-star, but more or less a hospital where they can get they can fulfill their healthcare need, which is nearer to their home. That becomes a much better choice for people. And in a lot of countries, that way it is evolving. And on top of that, especially in elderly population, they really don't want to move. Sometimes not everybody owns a car, really, and it's very difficult for them to move from their house. So home care is going to be a big thing in the future, which is already happening. Home care, even tests, collecting bloods from the home or giving healthcare at home is something that is evolving. even the concept, one company in Mumbai, I believe, he has started the concept of home ICU. Even, I mean, that is possible up to a certain extent, but still, this is something that that's what trying, that brings down the cost of the expenditure of the whole healthcare system, which is very, again, very much important also. Um, as a matter of fact, even in USA, I mean, 20% of their whole budget is healthcare. Really, I mean, it's a healthcare-based society. So I was just reading an article which was, I mean, which was published by someone in Kaiser Permanente. Kaiser Permanente is one of the biggest healthcare system in California. They were I mean, one of their survey reports shows that even in USA like situation, they are now going to build only hospitals which are no more than 100 beds. So because technology is there, and they also need to bring down the overhead costs. So I mean, if USA is going for that sort of model, I mean, in Bangladesh, I think, I mean, it's about time that we should be thinking on that line as well, because what's there for the middle class except government hospital, and sometimes government hospitals are not adequate enough to give quality healthcare. We all know that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Taha. My last question is, since we are talking in line of, your forte, which is geriatric or elderly people, I mean, this is something that I want to also, for the help of the audience, let me put it this way. আমরা সবাই এভাবে চিন্তা করি যে বয়স্ক, তাই ওনাকে আমরা চিকিৎসার থেকেও ইম্পর্টেন্ট যেটা, সেটা হলো আমরা কমফোর্ট দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করি, চিন্তা করি যে তাকে কতটুকু কমফোর্ট দেওয়া যায়, and within the limited scope of our healthcare, like for instance, couple of my elderly relatives have passed away over the last year or so. The healthcare that was applied was same for any patient under such condition. It was COVID. One of them was COVID, and one of them had heart situation. Now, আমরা একজন ইয়াং পেশেন্টকে যেই ট্রিটমেন্টটা দিতাম, একই ট্রিটমেন্ট কিন্তু আমরা ওই এল্ডারলি মানুষটাকে দিয়ে যাচ্ছি। But what if you're really saying that the number of elderly people are increasing in our country or worldwide, number one, and number two, if you really want to think of putting healthcare and the comfort together for them, so what we are talking about, an extra ordinary or an a special kind of healthcare system. How this can be adopted by contributing to the economy. So I'm not talking about palliative care. What I'm talking about is giving comfort to an elderly patient, as well as giving him a special kind of a treatment. Because উনি হয়তো একজন মানুষ যিনি এখনো 70 বছর বয়সেও কিন্তু উনি দেখা যাচ্ছে যে কাজ করছেন, ইকোনমিতে কন্ট্রিবিউট করছেন, হ্যাঁ, উনি ব্যবসা দেখছেন, probably he is still agile, but because of his age he has become sick. So under such condition, what can we think of where this support system for the elderly can not only contribute to the economy, but also will help these elderly patients at the same time?
Well, Albab, you have brought in this term economy into the whole scenario. Well, economy is always very important in everything. As a matter of fact, well, with the growth of aging, uh, uh, this elderly care has become a big business all over the world. I mean, it has become a economic powerhouse. I mean, there is already a term called silver economy, which is in vogue. People are really planners a lot over the world. In different parts of the world are really thinking about it. More Pampers are sold for nowadays for the elderly than for the babies. Really, I mean, all over the world. So the economy is shifting. They are becoming consumers as well. And when you are talking about, I mean, how we should differ in our approach in treating elderly people, well. Uh, Treating elderly people differs from younger people in one special issue, that is the philosophy of the treatment itself. Number one, uh, they need special care, which you have correctly pointed out. And you see, whenever I see this discrepancy all the time. Whenever an elderly patient is admitted in a hospital, the target should be, I mean, how little time we can keep him in a hospital. It has been seen that if we keep a elderly patient more than 7 to 10 days in a hospital situation, he gets hospital-acquired infection, or becomes depressed, or has got muscle wasting, or it takes longer time for him to recover. So it is very important that we discharge him as soon as we can from the hospital, and the care should be continued, not discontinued. I mean, in young patient gets well and goes back home and we forget about them. But in elderly patient, sending home itself is part of the treatment. How he's going to recover, how he's going to recover at home, or whether he needs any other treatment at home. So what's his nutritional need at home. A lot of home components are added into it. Or is the toilet slippery? I mean, elderly, frail person can sleep in the toilet. So why not put some rails into the toilet? I mean, these are all part of the treatment. And then again, one of the important issue in old age definitely is depression, and depression arises from loneliness. So, to cater this particular need, I mean, there are now adult daycare system concept uh, in many countries. I mean, it hasn't started in our country, as a matter of fact. But adult daycare, is like young children. There are for young children there are daycares, but for elderlies, a daycare concept has also developed, which has become very important. They come, they take their they take their treatment over there. They socialize with their people of their own age. I mean, and come on. A 70, imagine as a group of 70 years old friends wants to spend some quality time together. Where they will go in this city? I mean, you name one place. I mean, there's no place as such. So, they live alone in their home and they get depressed. And that leads to a lot of other problems. So, community-based healthcare system again is something that we should develop for our elderly people, where they can meet, they can have their treatments, they can have their socialization. These are very important issues. And most important, people have to realize that, uh, with so many elderly people around us, we should change our concept of the society itself. I mean, age-friendly society. One of the issues that has become very vogue in a lot of countries, like uh, in our country, probably a 60 years old man is an old person, or 70 years old man is an old person. But in, let's say, in Germany, 70 years is nothing. So there is a term called societal aging. People is as old as the society think he is or she is. So we have to change our concept of aging as well. I mean, that is very important.
Thank you. Fantastic. This is very interesting. I mean, one thing just came in my mind. In Bangladesh at the moment, over the last, especially over the last 7, 8 years, this concept of startups, the startups, venture capital investment, this has become the center of all discussion, center of all that is happening. And this message can be for the startups as well, that think of something that can facilitate the elderly generation, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Not and we must not call, as you have said rightly, that societal aging. So that's a wonderful terminology, and so that's what I'm saying, that we can really think of, the startups can think of something for investment can be made to support.
Maybe a restaurant for the 60 years and
Exactly.
above. I mean, that could be an interesting place. I mean, there might be a lot of customers there. Uh,
Fantastic. Yes, exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So now my last question to you, Dr. Taha, is,
Yeah.
you yourself is a doctor as well as an entrepreneur. You yourself is a doctor as well as an entrepreneur. So as an entrepreneur, it's small. If you have 2 minutes to say this out there to the business community out there, what would be your message?
Well, to tell you very frankly, I mean, still, financial institutions in our country are little skeptic about financing healthcare. That is one of the important issues. I mean, if you ask for setting up a garments industry, they are willing to give you money. But I mean, healthcare, it's very difficult to get fund for healthcare startups. To tell you frankly, I mean, I have done two startups healthcare so far, and I had to suffer all through the line, even though it's quite profitable. One of the reasons probably is because, you see, I mean, in healthcare, the business cycle is different. You cannot just pay off the money within 5 years short term loan. Probably in healthcare you need a longer term loan, let's say 10, 15 years, because you have to, I mean, this is a trust based industry, and people have to trust you and to develop the trust you need some time, really. uh, and so my suggestion is that, I mean, healthcare, people has to look at it from not only from, I mean, definitely it's, I mean, you can I can talk I can cite a lot of examples about garments industry which has gone belly up, which has failed. But as far as hospitals are concerned, I mean, hospitals do not really fail. Most of them are successful, but still, funding is really a big trouble. Probably the banks are interested to invest in big hospitals, corporate hospitals, they term it. But one has to believe there is a finite supply of rich people in this country. I mean, they are small in numbers. They can only afford corporate hospitals. But there are many customers available for middle class, smaller hospitals or not so expensive healthcare setups. They are the ones who need fund, but they don't get it. I mean, there are small hospitals all over the country, even in Thana level and all that. You can see nowadays. But unfortunately, financing organizations must change their attitude towards financing healthcare.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any questions from the audience? Today's, this T20 World Cup has sort of reduced our viewers online, but of course we are being recorded. This will be up in our Facebook, up in our YouTube channel, up in our website, and so we have this cumulative uh, 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 coming in and people watching this. But in the meantime, is there any question from the audience? If there is not, while we wait for last question, maybe I can ask you one simple question to end our session with while we wait for the questions to come along, if there is any. We have spoken about the healthcare. We have spoken about healthcare as an institution. But what about the doctors? What about the doctors? I mean, are there enough doctors? Are we equipped in our ship when we float a ship, when we create a ship and we put it on the ocean? Do we have enough captain and sailors to sail that ship?
Well, as I said, that medicine is changing rapidly. I mean, it's changing so rapidly that what is taught in the medical schools are becoming quickly obsolete. So it's always a challenge to create. I mean, doctors are in a way like entrepreneurs, really, I tell you, because they see patients and they have to deliver. I mean, they have their service to sell. That's how they survive. And they must have adequate service capacity, delivery capacity to meet their ends meet. But the problem here is, you see, problem starts when we don't have any proper referral system in the country. Though there are about now more than 100,000 MBBS doctors in the country, but even with simple diseases like simple fever, people go to the specialist. That's not how it should be. I mean, there has to be. We have to develop a referral system so that even the newly passed doctors can get patients and they can survive. Because it's not easy to study and it takes a long time and it's expensive and all that, and they have to make their living. And when it comes to specialists, the quality has improved a lot over the years. You remember that for cardiac problems, I mean, all the patients used to go outside the country. Now most of them are being treated inside the country. And it's heart treatment. A lot of subjects, I mean, other subjects are developing too. So probably when people compared our medical specialist with specialists of other countries, I sometimes I really get confused why they do that. Because I mean, most of the people in the country are happy with their own doctors because they cannot afford to go outside the country. It's only a few people who goes. I mean, we shouldn't worry about them. I mean, let them go to wherever they want. Who cares? We have to build for the people, I mean, who are probably the 99% population of this country. We have to develop facilities for them. For 1%, if they want to spend their money outside the country, I mean, it's their problem, not ours.
Wonderful. Well, we have come to the end of the session. We had a wonderful discussion, very interesting discussion with Dr. Samnun Taha, who himself is a geriatric specialist, a doctor, an entrepreneur, as well as a philosopher. I can assure this because I know him for a while, and that's why I'm saying that he's a philosopher as well. And the best part is he's one doctor who thinks of patients first. His philosophy is that a patient must survive. A patient is the most important person to him. We have discussed today about one interesting aspect, which is geriatric, which is elderly patients, elderly people. And I think uh, elderly people who are people with the wisdom, who are the people who have lived to see, and more they are around, I think more this world will be of wisdom. So let us come together and let us think of create a healthcare system where there is enough for the comfort as well as treatment for the elderly patients as much as there are for the younger patients. So let us look forward to a much better healthcare system beyond 2021. And thank you, dear audience, for being with us. Thank you, Dr. Taha. And we will
Thanks.
come back with the finale. Please wait for our finale, which is on the 14th of this month, where we will talk about digital corporate governance. Thank you all. Assalamu alaikum. Good night.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Bye.